Have you ever stopped to wonder what comes after awakening? Is spiritual awakening the end of a search or just the beginning of a much larger journey? Spiritual awakening is often seen as a final moment, an arrival. But what if it is merely the first opening, the door revealing an endless path? Alan Watts, one of the great spiritual philosophers of the 20th century, said, "Awakening is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of the end of sleep." With this, he reminds us that awakening doesn't mean we've found all the answers, but rather that we've begun asking the right questions. Awakening is not a final point. It is a window opening onto a vast horizon of self-discovery and transformation. Imagine awakening as reaching the summit of a mountain, only to realize there are even higher peaks ahead. Each new altitude brings a new perspective, but also new challenges. Here begins our journey, not a linear path, but a continuous process of going beyond, of exploring the depths of who we are, and integrating that wisdom into our lives. Spiritual awakening is not a singular final experience. On the contrary, it's made up of cycles inviting us to explore different layers of our consciousness. Each phase presents new challenges, new questions, and with them, new insights. With each cycle, we realize that awakening is a process that renews itself, like the changing seasons, always bringing something new, always revealing new facets of ourselves. Eckhart Tolle, a master in discussing presence and the now, states, "The spiritual journey is continuous. There is always more to explore." He reminds us that there is no defined end, but a path that constantly challenges us. It's a flow, like the waves of the ocean that come and go, each one teaching us something, pulling us deeper, and then bringing us back to the surface only to dive in once again. Think of awakening as a dance. There are moments of deep introspection, where we turn inward, confronting shadows and fears. And there are moments of expansion, where we feel united with everything and everyone, as if we were one. It's a natural rhythm, a pulse that brings us back to the center and then launches us into the vast universe of self-knowledge. Thus, the journey of continuous awakening isn't about reaching a final goal. It's about constant evolution, the eternal process of discovering, letting go, and beginning again. Awakening is something powerful, almost transcendental, but the true challenge lies in bringing this awareness into our daily lives, into the small actions and relationships of every day. Awakening calls us to a new way of being present in each moment. But how do we anchor this experience in our daily lives? Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen master, invites us to understand that the real miracle is not to walk on water, but to walk on earth with full awareness. With this, he teaches us that we don't need grand feats to live spiritually. Each step, each breath, each gesture can express this new awareness. Spiritual grounding is this practice of returning to the here and now, feeling the body, and rooting oneself. It's a necessary balance between expanding consciousness and the simplicity of everyday life. When we're grounded, we're no longer divided between the sacred and the mundane. Everything becomes a manifestation of our awakened self. Imagine a tree. The higher it grows, the more deeply its roots fix into the earth. In the same way, our spiritual growth is only sustainable when we're rooted in the small realities of life, bringing the wisdom of awakening to every daily act, every word, and every look. When we awaken, a powerful light is cast on our inner world. This light illuminates not only our most beautiful aspects, but also those parts of us we tend to hide avoid, or reject our shadows. This encounter with shadows is essential in the spiritual journey because in this confrontation, we find some of our greatest opportunities for growth. Carl Jung, the great psychologist and scholar of the human soul, said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." The spiritual journey invites us to look within and accept these shadows, not as flaws, but as legitimate parts of who we are. They're not obstacles, they're invitations to know ourselves with more depth and compassion. Imagine the shadows as seeds buried in the soil, waiting for the chance to grow in the light. By accepting them, by allowing them to surface, we give them the chance to blossom, to transform. Each fear, each doubt, each repressed feeling is a part of our being that seeks acceptance and understanding. Working with shadows is a way of becoming whole. It's a process of healing, of integration, where we recognize that everything in us, the light and the dark, the beautiful and the painful, is part of the wholeness of our being. With awakening comes a natural desire to contribute to the well-being of the world, as if, by connecting to a greater consciousness, we feel that our personal journey only makes sense when it also involves the collective. This call to serve doesn't need to be grand or visible. It can manifest in small gestures, in words of encouragement, in kindness toward others. Mahatma Gandhi said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." This teaching reminds us that by dedicating ourselves to the common good, we find a new dimension of ourselves. Awakening isn't just an internal journey. It inspires us to look outward, to see and serve the world with compassion and respect. Imagine us as drops of water falling into a lake. Every act of kindness we perform creates a ripple that spreads, touching those around us. Service to the world is this, a series of small acts that together create a current of transformation and love. Ultimately, true service isn't imposed. It arises spontaneously as a natural unfolding of the love and awareness that awaken within us. The spiritual journey moves in cycles, like the rhythm of nature itself. There are moments of expansion when we feel deeply connected with the universe, with a clarity that almost reveals the meaning of everything. And there are moments of contraction when we turn inward, facing challenges, doubts, and often a sense of disconnection. These cycles are natural and fundamental to our growth. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Don't worry, whatever you lose comes back in another form." He reminds us that contraction phases are not setbacks, but essential parts of the process. Just as a seed needs to be buried and pass through darkness before it sprouts, we also go through phases of retreat that prepare us for new blossoming. Imagine you are a tree, with roots deepening every time the leaves fall. This cycle of expansion and contraction strengthens our being, giving us the resilience to face challenges and the lightness to experience ecstasy. Instead of resisting these cycles, wisdom lies in accepting them as a sacred rhythm, trusting that each phase, even the most challenging ones, leads us to a new dimension of ourselves. After awakening, our perception of time begins to change. What was once a constant search for results and achievements transforms into a desire for presence, for being fully in the moment. The rush diminishes, and we begin to see that each moment holds what we need, without having to chase the next. Lao Tzu, the great Chinese sage, teaches us, time is a human creation. Those who live in the now live in peace. This teaching invites us to rethink our relationship with time. When awakened, the future and the past lose their urgency, and the now becomes our main focus, the true place where life happens. Imagine the present as a calm river. When we try to anticipate the future or relive the past, it's as if we're rowing against the current. But by surrendering to the present moment, we float in the natural flow of life, allowing it to take us where we need to be without resistance. This new relationship with time teaches us patience, the trust that everything unfolds in its own rhythm. Every experience, every lesson arrives when we're ready, neither before nor after. And by accepting this, we find a deep peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. With awakening, our relationships also transform. What once attracted us to people and connections may change, leading to the distancing of some relationships and the creation of new connections with those who resonate with our new vibration. This process can be challenging as it involves letting go, but it's also an opportunity to attract those who truly understand and support our journey. Ram Dass, a renowned spiritual teacher, said, "We're all just walking each other home." This thought reminds us that the people we meet along the journey are part of this return, this search for authentic and true connection. By aligning with our essence, we attract those who share this quest and walk alongside us. Imagine that, like a radio frequency, you now emit a new vibration. Those on the same wavelength are drawn to it, and the connections become deeper and more meaningful. This phenomenon, often called a soul tribe, is the gathering of souls who share a similar vision, a shared understanding of what it means to be awakened. This new reality invites us to embrace relationships based on authenticity and mutual support. These are connections that help us grow, inspire us, and remind us of who we truly are, even as we face our challenges. Spiritual awakening challenges us to free ourselves from the labels and roles we've constructed over our lives. These labels, I am this, I am that, are forms of identification we create to feel secure, but often they limit our true self. With awakening, we begin to see that we're more than these identities. We're something vast, without limits, that cannot be contained by fixed definitions. Jiddu Krishnamurti, a great Indian thinker, said, "True freedom is being free from oneself." This means detaching from the image we've created of ourselves, allowing our essence to flow without the constraints of a rigid identity. It's an act of profound courage and authenticity because it invites us to be who we are without needing labels to validate or define us. Imagine awakening as removing the layers of a mask we've worn for a long time. By letting it go, we can breathe more freely, feel more deeply, live more truly. This detachment allows us to access a more fluid identity that adapts, grows, and transforms. Being who we are without labels is a liberating experience. It's a reconnection with authenticity, a way of existing in the world fully and truly without needing to fit into roles or titles. It's the expression of our essence in its purest form. With awakening, we begin to understand the concept of flow, an openness to the natural course of life, where we trust in the unfolding of events. This state of flow teaches us to live without resistance, without trying to control or shape every detail, but allowing life to happen at its own pace. It's a practice of surrender and acceptance. The Tao Te Ching teaches us, "One who flows like water adapts to everything and can achieve everything." Just as water flows around obstacles without losing its essence, we're invited to adapt to changes, to flow with circumstances, trusting that by following this natural movement, we will arrive where we need to be. Imagine yourself as a river. When we try to swim against the current, we tire ourselves, we struggle, and often don't reach the place we desire. But by surrendering to the flow, we allow the current to guide us. This act of letting go of control isn't passivity. It's a kind of wisdom, a trust that the universe knows the way better than our own ego. Living in flow is living in harmony. It's allowing our personal will to align with the natural course of life, accepting both calm and stormy moments, knowing that all are part of our process of evolution. Even after awakening, the ego doesn't disappear. It can manifest in subtler ways, and one of these is spiritual ego. This arises when we identify with the idea of being spiritual and unconsciously start building an image of ourselves as more evolved or more aware than others. This spiritual ego is deceitful because it hides behind an appearance of virtue and self-knowledge. Thomas Merton, a monk and spiritual writer, said, "Humility is the freedom from the false image of oneself." This reminds us that true humility is recognizing that awakening doesn't make us better than anyone, but brings us closer to others as equals. Being spiritual isn't a title, but a state of being that expresses itself with simplicity and compassion. Imagine the ego as a shadow that follows us. The more light we bring to ourselves, the more this shadow grows. Thus, the practice of vigilance and humility is essential. Recognizing when we're acting from ego, even in a spiritual context, is a way to maintain clarity and authenticity. The challenge of spiritual ego reminds us that the journey isn't about creating a new spiritual identity, but about dissolving all identities that separate us from others. It's a continuous exercise in simplicity and honesty with oneself. With awakening, the idea of abundance takes on a new meaning. We begin to see that abundance isn't about accumulating things, but about tuning into the energy of love, peace, and contentment. This abundance is internal, an experience of fullness that comes from living in alignment with our true essence. Wayne Dyer, an inspiration in spiritual thought, said, "Abundance isn't something we acquire, it's something we tune into." This phrase reveals that abundance is not outside of us, it's a state of mind. When we connect with our essence, the feeling of lack disappears, and we're filled with a peace that transcends the desire to have. Imagine our essence as an inexhaustible source of pure water. When we align with who we truly are, this water flows naturally, nourishing us and those around us. Abundance is no longer a goal, but a consequence of being in tune with the natural flow of life. This new perspective teaches us that in seeking true abundance, what we truly desire is a life rich in meaning, in deep relationships, and in moments of peace. It's an abundance that transcends the material and manifests as simple and authentic joy. After awakening, even the simplest things begin to shine anew. Daily activities, like drinking a cup of tea, walking, or even washing dishes, become opportunities to experience life with a new depth and presence. It's as if the ordinary becomes extraordinary in our eyes because we are truly present to live it. Ram Dass, a beloved spiritual teacher, said, "Spirituality is not escaping life, it's finding it in everything we do." This phrase reminds us that we don't need grand experiences to live spirituality. On the contrary, it's in the small things that full presence is revealed, that simplicity transforms into a space of peace and meaning. Imagine that every act in daily life is like a door to the present moment. When we do something with full attention, it's as if we're honoring life in its purest form. Each breath, each gesture, each look is a celebration of the now, a reminder that awakening is not reserved for special moments, but for every moment. This rediscovery teaches us that true magic lies in the here and now. By opening ourselves to the ordinary, we find an infinite source of serenity and gratitude. We come to the point where we can view spiritual awakening not as a final destination, but as a way of living. Awakening isn't about arriving at a specific place, but about walking with awareness, accepting each new cycle, each challenge, and each revelation as part of a greater whole. It's understanding that the journey itself is the destination. Alan Watts expressed this idea by saying, "You don't need a destination for your journey. Every step is the destination." This phrase reminds us that we don't need to wait for an endpoint to experience fullness. With every step we take with intention, with every moment we live with presence, we're fulfilling the purpose of awakening. Imagine that every step you take on the spiritual journey is like a brushstroke on a work of art. It doesn't matter if the painting is complete or not. What matters is the process, the act of creating, of expressing, of being authentic at every moment. The value lies in living deeply, in appreciating the present, and embracing the unknown that the future brings. In the end, spiritual awakening teaches us that the journey is a dance, a celebration of being. And as we dance this journey, we discover that the meaning is not in reaching, but in each moment lived, in every integrated experience, in every genuine expression of our spirit.